Yo, what's poppin', everyone? Welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Salazar here. Today we're going to be going over the regionals in Toronto that just happened. 2137 players, which I think is the largest Toronto regionals of all time. So the largest Canadian Pokemon TCG event, which is actually super cool. Had a lot of really cool decks featured. However, the top is going to be very Drago heavy. So what we're going to be doing is kind of covering over the overall metagame, but we're also going to be going over the top 16 best decks. If we go over the same archetype, we're probably going to be like, hey, this is the changes between the archetype. Do I like them? Do I not like them? And hopefully I don't skip over NE decks. So we're going to kick it off strong with Gardevoir at 16th, Brandon Salazar, previous US national champion. And really, I don't think there's too much that's different about their list. All the links to the list are going to be available in the description. So if my camera cuts off anything like this clef key in the top rights, you'll be able to kind of see them there. You have access to Gardevoir that's going to Psychic Embrace, Refinement that's going to pitch away cards, preferably energy, and loading up those energies on Drifloon and Screamtail and Fluttermane and all these different attackers for different situations. I think the big changes that they added in Tatsugiri, my kind of line of thought when it comes to this deck is that this is a very traditional old school Guardy deck. I think the decks that are seeing the most success are kind of the new age, kind of slower Guardies that were unveiled around Baltimore regionals. I mean, Brandon Salazar is one of the best players in the world, so seeing their take on the deck is cool. It just shows that Gardevoir is just a very successful deck. I've never been a huge fan of Gardevoir, to be honest. I'm not a Gardevoir hater. It's just like, do you ever have one of those decks that only works for other people, never for you? And I feel like that's kind of like for me, where it's just like, no matter what I do with this deck, I'm playing the deck. I feel like I play enough Pokemon, like, I've been playing Pokemon for 20 years at a world championship level, multiple major event wins, and this deck just doesn't get there for me. So maybe I'm just unlucky. Maybe it's just a bias, probably what it is, but regardless, it's just a deck that doesn't work for me. If Gardevoir doesn't work for you, or if you're a Gardevoir fan, see what I did there? Give this video a thumbs up. It does help support the channel. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Double check to see if you subscribed. Head us up for that 25K before 2024 ends. And let us know in the comments what you think about the metagame at Toronto. Love to have a spark of discussion over there. And you can see we have the list. So I'm going to put these, oh, it's Kato Arise list from Perth. So that's fair. I think I had the same kind of reaction when I came to Perth regionals. We're going to move on to number 15 because we were just at 16. I'm just double checking because somewhere in the comments I missed someone's list one time and it makes me feel some kind of way. Vance Kelly is a player that I actually lost to in this tournament. The 2023... They won the Worlds that was in Japan. Very strong player to win the World Championships. So that's a Tina V-Star in the top right here. Drago's going to be copying all these different dragon Pokemon. What we've seen is players adding in a Alolan Executor into their decks. If you watch the finals, well, watch the finals because maybe that attack was used. Swinging Sphene to knock out a basic Pokemon. So pretty cool card across the board. And one thing that I noticed about Vance's list is that they added back in Hawlucha. Hawlucha's a card that got cut from Drago list maybe a month ago, and it does allow you to snipe off some Charmanders with Dragapult using Phantom Dive. So I thought it was cool. They also played Lost Vacuum, removing a tool card from one of your opponent's Pokemon, or any Pokemon really in play, or a stadium, I guess. And I guess you can get that back with... you can get that back with your Legacy Star. So that was kind of cool. I played Ancient Box against Vance. So imagine me when my Ancient Booster Energy Capsules got lost zoned away. Yeah, definitely not what I wanted, especially when I was in a winning position game one. Vance played excellently. I think that this list is a solid take on the deck. Don't know how I feel about Lost Vacuum. I like having a Stadium. Just because I feel like stadiums can stop your opponent right before you Iona them, but Vacuum was kind of hot. We're going to move on to number 14, Elliot Miller, playing Cloth Tropicos, one of my favorite decks in format. You can see this is pretty similar to what a lot of players played. Jesper, Christian Fontenot, a lot of different players playing it. So their builds, fairly similar to most other Cloth builds. We have a big special condition package with Brute Bonnet, Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, that's over there, adding another two to the poison stack, and then we have the baby Pecharunt. I don't know how to pronounce these Pokemon, y'all. If you watch the channel for more than 2 seconds, you know that it's one of those things that I always struggle with. But regardless, it's one of those things where, yeah, this is really going to be one of those Pokemon where you're able to add some more poison damage to your opponent's Pokemon, giving you an opportunity to hit with Cloth. Cloth gets knocked out, they're still poisoned, you send up the Peach, and they are 8 times poisoned. I like the Drago that you could send up after knockouts, that's kind of cool. Hisuian Electrode V, you could put on the goggles with that, the glasses, so it does 3 times damage, so you can knock out 3 times weakness, I should say, so you can knock out a Charizard in between turns with Poison and Radiant Hisuian Sneasler. Overall, I think this list is kind of cool. Don't really have any problems with it. Definitely like 1 or 2 cards off from what a super standard list looks like. I think that's basically the limitations of what this deck can be. Really, yeah, it's a cool deck. Cloth didn't perform as high, but I mean, you'd have 2 in the top 16. I think could really hang with some of the bigger decks in format. So great job to them. We're going to see Gabe Shumway up here at 13th. Now, seeing if they played anything interesting here that's different, that's a Pheasantipity in the top right. Looks like they didn't. They had the Drago as well. It honestly looks almost exactly the same. I can't even put my finger on where it might be different. So maybe if someone knows where it might be different, let me know. I think the other one might not have played Research. I'm not worried about it to double check. Like, again, the archetype is literally like 1 card off, like from the other one or 2. And I think that's really what's reasonable. So Cloth is a cool deck. Definitely one of my favorite decks. Is the type of decks that like gets me going. But I ultimately didn't play that. I came all the way placed at 51st right over here. So that was pretty cool to place 51st with Ancient Box. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, if you're trying to get any of the cards for these decks, check out our sponsors at Kayfabe Cards, at PTCGL Store. They totally have huge selections of cards, and in the case of PTCGL Store codes, we have discounts and links in the description, so check that out. And if you want other deck lists for all these decks, I do have my Metafy group in the description, so you can subscribe to that and get access to all of my deck lists. That'd be really cool. So we were just at number 13. We're going to go over to Gardevoir, Henry Chow. One of the players that I was talking about, our Baltimore regional champion. So Henry Chow, Jesse Spencer playing the exact same list here. And we're going to see exactly what it looks like. They added in Mawile into their deck. Mawile being a cool way to tempting trap your opponent out of nowhere. Definitely one of the cooler cards available in the deck. Again, same kind of strategy. We see the double Monkey Dory. This is Unfair Stamp, so not going with Secret Box. So maybe it's just, maybe Unfair Stamp is just on the way back. You want to know what I got to trust? The Gardevoir experts in the house. Henry Chow previously won the Baltimore Regional Championships. So if we, I don't know if I can click on their name here. So yeah, you can see they played a lot of Guardy, 12th, 20th, 36th, 1st, 6th, 22nd, 49th, some really strong finishes there with Gardevoir. And that's in such a short time. Same thing with Michael Davidson. And they played a very, I think they played a similar build with Klefki as well. I don't know what their change was. Oh, it looks like Henry played Moonlit Hill, and they did not. So they were just 1 card off. And I mean, if you look at Josh Frink, Benny Billinger, Michael Davidson. That's a hefty lineup of players, a very strong lineup of players. So if you're looking for Gardevoir, we have some pretty solid finishes here. We have a list that's one card off, 2 of them in the top 16. But I mean, it's a lot of Gardevoir. Now, moving on to Grant Shen, another player that I lost to at this tournament. So Caleb Gadamer, 4th, 5th, Grant Shen, 10th. They're making my job easy when it comes to this video because I could just, let's just say, skip over some lists. They all play the same deck list. And where they had it, this is a Squawkabilly in the top right, by the way. Pretty cool card overall. I think this is looking really similar to the other Regidrago builds that we've seen so far. They went with Terra Orb, they went with Pokestop and a Jamming Tower. They ended up cutting a Fire Energy. I think I like this build a little more. I don't mind the Hawlucha in the other one, but I like that the Pokestop can sometimes rip some other cards. Maybe the Jamming Tower would be better as a Lost Vacuum in this list, because there's some synergy between Lost Vacuum and Jamming Tower. But they played incredibly well when I played against them. Like, I think it's really one of those things where top players playing a top deck, they're always going to see some kind of level of success. So makes me be like, maybe I go back to my Regidrago roots where I played that deck at Worlds and lost my winning into top 8. So pretty cool list. Don't really know if there's too much I want to change there. We're gonna have Kieran. Kieran's really like one of the hometown heroes of Toronto, and you can see a lot of the people played over this list. In general, I think Kieran took their list that they've been running. That's a weird ear in the top right. I hope everyone pays attention to all my ads about the Canadian Tire. You can tell that I'm Canadian true and true with all these all these ads, and sometimes you know that you get the French ones because I live in Quebec, a French first speaking province in Canada, which is really cool. Still learning my French. I'm on like day like 100 and I'm almost on 170 of Duolingo. They've really added in the Wellspring Ogerpon into their deck, being able to snipe some Pokemon or maybe potentially sobbing. Lugia V-Star is going to pitch away some Archeops, summon them back with Summoning Star, and accelerate those energies with Archeops to load up Pokemon on the bench. So I think that's like really like, or load up Pokemon in play, putting Archeops on the bench. So I think it's an overall like great take on the list. Kieran's arguably one of the most successful successful players of the deck, period. So to me, I think that Lugia V-Star is just like overall fantastic pick. And I guess Kieran avoided the lightning type Pokemon. Ended up losing in the asymmetrical top cut. I was rooting on them because as a Toronto local, I wanted to see them go as far as they could, but we'll see. We're going to see we're about to enter Regidrago. We see Owen Rhodes and Baldemar Merlot. Again, some successful players playing this deck. We saw a Noivern in this version of the deck. Noivern can use Covert Flight, which can be strong against some decks like Ancient Box, for example, stopping their basic Pokemon from being able to attack, and Dominating Echo could stop a Cloth deck that can't attach any double turbo energies or play any stadium cards to bump anything. I think I would have liked Dominating Echo a little bit more with maybe I would have liked that with Temple of Sinnoh, but that doesn't really change too much. Maybe they're going to get to knock out with Dominating Echo there. So that's kind of cool. Third Iono. Again, like it's just like a couple cards off here. And I don't really think that they're like losing too much when it comes down to it. So like, again, like this falls into the range of instead of playing like an extra stadium, they played an extra attacker. And that to me is about as far as the deck really goes. We're going to see Christian Labella, again, one of these strong Toronto local players. That's a Squawkabilly there. 2 Dragapults, 1 Tina, 1 Gutra, 1 Kieran, 3 Iono, like, again, going with the Terra Orb, just no stadium at all. Really just kind of gaining a space there. Again, I don't really think that that's a bad idea. They're a strong player, fundamentally strong deck. And they took I mean, Temple doesn't really help in Mirror. Jamming Tower doesn't really help in Mirror. If it's a Regidrago metagame, maybe these lists are just better. So we'll see how that goes. But moving on into Pidgeot Control, Hassan Kanuku. playing a really interesting build. That's a Pheasantipity in the top right. We see that Pidgeot Control is going to try to control your opponent, can juggle some resources back with the Regieleki, and we have a few ways to wall your opponent with Mimikyu, where there's the black Kieran EX that you can just auto paralyze, forcing some retreating elements, like a prime catcher out of a Red Drago, or a switch. And then once those are over, sorry, excuse me, wow, I have to regenerate myself with this advanced GG. It's definitely just like the time of the season, and I've been wrapping presents, so I think it's like glitter that is triggering everything else like this. Whew, that was fun. Yeah, so I think that there's just a bunch of different answers to a bunch of different matchups. You can see it's a bunch of one-ofs, a bunch of ways to kind of slow down your opponent, trap your opponent. I think decks like these are completely underrated. And you don't always see them in the top 8. A lot of times you'll see them in the top 16. They usually always lose in the top 8, I guess due to time rules, or like top players typically understanding how to play against these decks better than most other players. But it does make me wonder, like, if I played a deck like Pidgeot Control to, let's say, San Antonio, which is my next event, I wonder if I just spend my Christmas break or holiday season break learning how to play this deck through and through. Could I find myself in the top 8? We'll have to figure that out. Maybe it's on my mind. I think about this stuff often. But pretty cool list. I don't really have too much comment on it. I assume that they themselves and All Out Blitzel, which is our PTCG Online's just resident Pidgeot experts, something between this and their recent list is pretty on point. We're going to see Lucas Singh and Caleb Gettimer that play the exact same list as Grant Shen. So great job to both of them. They're both fantastic players through and through. We will see Vincent Owen and their deck for making top 4. They played Raging Bolt. So Raging Bolt, similar to the Red Drago deck, we're going to use Teal-esque Ogerpon, get a bunch of energies in play. This case, we're trying to rip them off with Bellowing Thunder, just to try to do some extra damage here. Now, seeing like it looks like a pretty traditional list. No Latias EX, so they have the double switch cards. They have an Iono. No Boss. I don't know if there's like, I think Boss would have been pretty cool. Briar is a card that I've never really been able to properly use when it comes to this deck. Maybe that was good for Charizard, which we didn't see any Charizard in the top 16. But yeah, I think that their list, I think that there's some other cards that I would like for a Raging Bolt list, like a Boss's Orders over Briar, because that's going to be used in a lot of other matchups. But maybe that's just me. I haven't got a chance to try this list out. Maybe it's cool. Maybe it has enough answers against everything else, like Lost Vacuum could be good against Gardevoir. That's really like something to be determined. So overall, congrats on their success, but I'd probably change the list up a little bit if it was me personally. We're going to see, this is, who is this? Who did I click on? Caitlin White. Now, they played the same list as Owen Rhodes at Sacramento, who he featured in the top 8, and Grant Manley. I wonder what really changes here. Looks like that's a Goodra in the top right, by the way. I think it's just like again we see like a third Iono that gets shifted here. Sometimes they play an extra fire energy. Everything I think is just relatively the same. And if we look at Cal Connor's list, the champion, 2 fire energies, double stadium, playing the superior energy retrieval. I think like a lot of these changes are like really like through and through majorly the same. So I think that overall, like Drago is a deck that's like 1 or 2 cards off. You got your flavor of your stadiums. Maybe you don't run a extra fire, you run a superior, maybe you don't. That's about it. So you just want to kind of run through the statistics. Red Drago, very, very, very high count of decks, 22% of day 2. We do see Charizard, which was 14%, but it didn't really convert super high when it came down to it. Snorlax Stall at 7%, give or take. Snorlax had a pretty emerging win rate. I guess a lot of the Regidrago players figured out how to play against it. However, there was a few players like Dennis Prof that were really close to getting there. Lugia Archeops did pretty well to make day 2. And I think Kieran is really like one of those dedicated players that knows what they're doing. So definitely check out some of the content they put out for Lugia. Dragapult's a deck that I didn't really see too much. Oh, I guess it's Dragapult Iron Thorns. I always forget. One Dragapult Pidgeot. I think Dragapult Iron Thorns is really like that's really where the deck's at. Gardevoir, I think Gardevoir, if you're a dedicated player, that's huge. Pretty great overall. Raging Bolts, there was a 1 in the top 4. Everything else didn't really place too high. Cloth, couple of high notes, but I didn't think they placed too high overall. Roaring Moon didn't necessarily have like, I think out of all the aggro decks, it's probably like one of my favorites. Because like if you look all the way down here at the bottom, Miraidon only had 2 players in day 2. So it's really like seeing some a downward trend from when it saw that success at Sacramento with my friend Landon Caitler making finals and winning the whole thing. Goldango didn't really again, like a lot of these decks just like peaked at the top 32, 64. It's a really top heavy Regidrago metagame, and you'll only see like a few decks emerge where it's like Gardevoir played by top players. So a lot of it's going to be really top player decided what those other decks are, and maybe a few sneak in of other decks. So this is the whole picture. I did just do a tier list explaining this, I think literally yesterday. And this page also has the stream graphics of day 1 to day 2. So Regidrago was 13% day 1, went to 21% day 2. Charizard was 12% day 1, 13% day 2. Goldango was 7% day 1, did not make it on the first page. Raging Bolts, again, 7% did not make it up there. Cloth did not make it up there. Miraidon did not make it up there. So if you played Goldango, Raging Bolt, Cloth, or Miraidon, your deck did not convert well. Charizard and Regidrago did, really showing their strength. Decks that did not feature on the day 1 graphic, Snorlax and Lugia and Gardevoir and Dragapult Iron Thorns, all really pulled their weight and really brought it from where they were a sub percentage of what they were on day 1 and really increase it. So those are some decks that you might want to start looking at going forward. Decks that really weren't featured. Like I think Ancient Box, there wasn't that many people that played Ancient Box, for example. But 7 of us in day 2, so that was kind of cool. So I would look into it. I think that Toronto was pretty much what we understood the metagame was going to be. I've been saying Regidrago is going to be one of the top decks pretty much forever. So if you've been keeping up with the channel, that's Charizard and Regidrago, number 1, number 2 in the format. Snorlax probably moves up to number 3. Lugia remains in its top 4. Maybe Dragapult stays top 5, top 6. Same thing, Gardevoir, top 5. I mean, I think a lot of these decks are like relatively staying in this metagame. And then you get like Pidgeot Control, where it's just like Pidgeot Control can usually plays pretty highly, but doesn't always emerge the way that we want it to. So we'll have to continue to see how the decks change up. I think our next iteration of this is going to be after Rio de Janeiro or Birmingham regionals, right before San Antonio. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, I will catch up with every single person here over the holidays, keeping it real with more content on the Shuffle Squad. We have been doing more Shuffle Squad inner workings. So I did a video with Dre recently. I did a video with Dom recently. So check those out if you're looking for something cool to keep you really happy over the holidays. That being said, check out the description for all of our sponsors, any coaching information for myself, any Metafy group information, any of that, and of course support the squad by giving this video a like, share, subscribe, and of course letting us know in the comments what kind of content you want to see next. I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content,
watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.